How's it going, JJ French?
How are you, Omar?
I am doing great, man. Thank you so much for making time for us, man. And we couldn't think of anybody better to have for our 100th interview anniversary than you, man. You are a legend. You are a myth. You are a fantastic, dude. We've been watching videos on you the last week, dude. We love your guitar collection. We love everything you've been doing with producing music. So thank you for making time for us today.
Well, thanks for having me.
I appreciate it.
Hey, how's it going, JJ? This is Josh, one of the co-hosts of the show. Thanks so much for being here, taking some time out. And
yeah, well, we're living in interesting times, aren't we?
Oh, that is for sure. I work in a grocery store, so yeah, it's definitely times unlike I've ever seen.
You know, I'm a little older than you guys, so I lived through. I've seen a lot. You know, when I was 10 years old, we had atom bomb drills in our schools.
Wow.
You guys don't even know what that's like, but we had to. They were assuming that we were going to have a nuclear attack by Russia, and when Kennedy had the missile embargo around Cuba. We had atom bomb drills, so we had to think that, we're going to get attacked by nuclear missiles. We have to hide under the desks. So we did that for about 6 months, and we had fallout shelters in all the buildings in case of an atom bomb attack. So we lived through that, and then Kennedy assassination happened in '63, and we lived through that. And then we had the race riots in '68, which were every city was basically on fire. You had anti-war demonstrations. You had Martin Luther King assassinated and Bobby Kennedy assassinated, and we lived through that. And that was extremely trying and traumatic times. Then we had the Watergate hearings. We lived through that. You go up into the 80s. We had Lennon's assassination. I live in New York City, just a couple blocks away from the Dakota. So I spent my night in front of the Dakota after he was killed and lived through that. Didn't know how the world would respond. 9/11, living in New York City during 9/11 was unbelievable. I mean, the rest of the world kind of knows existentially what happened, but we here in New York lived through it and didn't know if we were going to recover from that. And we lived through that. Plus, we had two gas crises, one in '73 and one in '79, where you couldn't buy gasoline unless you had a car license plate that matched the odd or even day at the last number of the plate with the odd or even day in the calendar. And you weren't allowed to buy gas on Sundays, so we lived through that. Whoa. And now we have this, and now we have this, and now we have, we in New York City lived through the Son of Sam murders, which you guys either don't know about or don't really know or understand. But for a year, he was killing women. He was shooting couples in parking lots, and it affected. The band was playing in bars. All the clubs were affected because he was shooting people in parking lots, and so the girls stopped coming to the clubs because they were afraid they'd be shot, or they were wearing black wigs because he was shooting blondes. The rumor was he was shooting blondes, and so girls started wearing black wigs. They stopped doing that, and then that was a whole year's worth of horror. Absolute horror. I also lived through the blackout of 1965, in which the entire East Coast was blacked out, which was the day I started my first rock band, as a matter of fact, which was, I think, November 9th, 1965, and the entire East Coast went dark for 24 hours. And so, you live a long time, you see a lot of craziness, and you live through it all, and you say, how am I going to live through it? And you do. And now we're smack in the middle of this, and this is unprecedented, and everybody wishes it was a bad dream that we could wake up from, and we're nowhere near the end of this dream. I don't know where we are exactly. We may be in the middle of it, maybe in the beginning of it. It really just depends on how this virus is affecting us, but it's certainly affecting everything. It affects everything. It's our entire walk of life, and if you live in New York City, I tell people... Where are you guys based out of?
We're based out of Ashland, Oregon, on the West Coast.
Okay. So are you in a fairly rural community, or are you in a city?
We're not rural, but we're definitely no New York City. I'd say we're densely populated rural, if you will.
So in other words, you could walk out of your house on any given day and not necessarily see somebody with a mask or not necessarily know that COVID is happening, correct?
Oh, yeah.
You couldn't do that.
There's plenty of people,
yeah, you cannot do that here. In April, the death rate was out of control. There were 1,000 people a day dying, and you were not allowed to be, I live in an apartment building, you're not allowed to be in your lobby or your hallway or your elevator without a mask and gloves on. So if you walked out of your apartment, you had to have masks and gloves. If you walked out on the street, everything was shut, except for a couple of food stores and a liquor store. And then the ambulances, I only live a half a mile away from a local hospital. The ambulances were coming up the street every 5 minutes carrying someone who was dying. So so New York City lives with death at a much higher rate than almost any place else in the country. And so therefore we in New York, especially New York City, do not take these restrictions for granted. I went to the park today for a walk, and everyone's wearing a mask. Everybody. And you cannot walk into a store without wearing one. I mean, it's just the law. You have to have a mask. You have to. And because of that, we have it more or less under control, but you can't eat inside in a restaurant. You have to eat outside. So it's affecting everybody's day-to-day walk of life. Now, having said that, if you've been living long enough in this world and you take a very broad view of life, you can say to yourself, if this is a 3-month, 4-month, 6-month experience, there's worse experiences in this world. There's worse inconveniences in this world. I mean, there were people who lived in concentration camps. There were slaves who were brought here in the bottom of slave ships, chained to the bowels of freaking these wooden ships, and had to sail across the ocean with slave masters. I mean, there's so many worse, more horrible ways that society has had to endure horrible, traumatic circumstances. And if all I have to do is wear a mask and gloves and wash my hands 4 times a day, if all I need to do is do that to get through this, this pandemic, I'll do it without any complaints. I'm not sitting here going, man, it's impinging on my freedom. I mean, screw that. I want to live. I don't want to die. And I don't know about you guys, but everybody in New York City knows someone who died or got sick with it. So I've lost 5 people I know.
Wow. Already.
And certainly I know dozens of people who've had it. And all varying degrees of infection, from basically just lost my sense of smell to ventilator, and everything in between. So it kind of has been ruling everybody's. It's almost impossible to have a discussion without an 800-pound gorilla.
Yeah, no,
understandable.
And it's like people really don't know the severity of situations until it hits home. Like you were saying, everybody in New York knows at least like one person who passed away. And the thing is, here on the West Coast, is that now and then you'll hear about a case where it was like a close friend or a close family member. Then it really hits home. But right now, like they made it mandatory to wear masks to go into stores and everything. And to be honest, there's still like 30% of people out there not doing a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's our own ignorance and stupidity. There's no getting around it. It's ignorance and stupidity. It's some sort of like stupid sense of liberty being taken away. I mean, I don't really understand it, because it's a mentality that I just don't get. I don't get it. It's a public health issue. It's not a political issue. It's not a constitutional issue. It's a freaking public health issue. If you don't want to get sick and possibly die, wear a mask for a while. Okay, that's the best protection we have right now until there's some sort of a vaccine. That's what you can do. And so the mentality of thinking it's something bigger than that, like it's political or whatever, it's just so unbelievably ignorant. I have very low tolerance for people who are that ignorant.
It's just easy things we can do every day to look out for your fellow man,
Yep, 100%. Anyway, okay, enough of the pandemic. So, okay, guys probably want to talk about the band a little bit, so go ahead, fire away.
It's all good, whatever you want to talk about, but we do have some questions here. I'm going to go ahead and jump right into the first, the question most everybody asks every time is, how did Twisted Sister form?
Well, there is a documentary. Did you guys see it, by the way?
Oh yeah, we are. Wasn't it? We are Twisted effing sister.
Yeah. So
yes.
it basically that tells that story. And my book, which is coming out hopefully in the next 6 months, which is called Twisted Business, and it tells the story of the band. It tells the story of the band through a business perspective because I'm a manager and as well as a musician. I was a Grateful Dead hippie in the 60s, and through a confluence of circumstances, I got a subscription to a magazine called Fusion in September of '72, and David Bowie was on the cover of that issue, and the story was about Ziggy Stardust, and I looked at these pictures and I went, oh my God, look at this band, it looks amazing. The Grateful Dead are fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with them. But, as a hippie band, they kind of sit there, they wear, their T-shirts, and they play. There's no rock and roll magic or image, but it's certainly musical, there's musical magic there for those who consider that musical magic or whatever. And I had gone through 5 years of following them heavily, really, really heavily. Like I was a huge Dead head. So I'd seen them like 27 times at that point, 26 times. And that was between 69 and 72, okay? And then when I got this subscription to this magazine, I got 3 albums with this subscription. I got Lou Reed's Transformer, Mott's All the Young Dudes, and I think I either got Ziggy Stardust or I got Hunky Dory. I forgot which one. But they changed my life. I pivoted, did a 180. Like, oh my God, this is amazing. Screw this hippie world. I was playing in an Allman Brothers cover band at the time, And I kind of went, screw that, and wanted to join a glitter band, right?
Definitely.
So the New York Dolls were coming up at that point. And the Dolls were the house band at the Mercer Arts Center down in the Village. Every Sunday in the fall of '72, the Dolls played. And friends of mine were friends of the Dolls. And so I used to go down to see the Dolls, and it was a whole different crowd. It wasn't a hippie crowd. It was this glam, glitter, Andy Warhol, lower Manhattan kind of hip crowd that was the complete antithesis of the hippie-dippy world that I was in. It was like this avant-garde, artsy, kind of trippy kind of thing, and everybody was beautiful, and image ruled the day. Instead of just a bunch of long hairs and T-shirts and jeans, it was people wearing like frilly clothes and tons of makeup and tons of hairspray. Like there's no ozone layer above the club, that kind of thing, and it was really glammy. And I just saw it and just said, wow, that's me. That's me. And I just kind of converted and did a 180. And then I because the Dolls were awful. But I said, if you could, I had auditioned for Kiss at the time. They were called Wicked Lester. And I didn't make the band, obviously. And it wasn't a big deal. But when Kiss formed, at the same time as the Dolls and Twisted, Kiss had this idea of, they understood heavy metal. Dolls didn't. Kiss understood the power of British power rock, like Slade, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
They understood. They understood. They got that. Gene and Paul really loved Slade, and they understood the power of Marshall amplifiers. And and American bands didn't play through Marshalls in those days. They played through Fenders for the most part. And there's a big difference. There's a real statement difference of the way sound radiates. Jimi Hendrix was really the only American artist to play through Marshalls back in those days. So Kiss, I wanted to do a hybrid of what the Dolls were image-wise and what Kiss was power-wise. And to that end, Twisted, I auditioned for a band called Silver Star in New Jersey in December '72, and that was a glitter band that wanted to look like the Dolls but actually play, because the Dolls really were awful. And that band evolved, and that became Twisted Sister. We renamed ourselves that around Valentine's Day '73.
Far out, man. That's like I said, I watched the documentary earlier, but it's cool to hear the story, straight out of your mouth. For a lot of people who maybe haven't seen that and just who are a little less aware of how you guys got going and all that.
But that band that was Twisted Sister was nowhere near the band that made it. That band consisted of totally different people except me.
I remember, if I remember correctly, when I was looking at old pictures and stuff, this is when I was younger, I remember seeing some pictures from that era and just realizing, wow, that's a completely different lineup there, because by that time, Dee wasn't with you guys, correct?
No, there was multiples of different lineups.
Yeah.
There was like, by the time AJ joined the band, which was 10 years after the band formed, the band had gone through 14 lineup changes.
Wow.
So the band that made it with me, Dee, Eddie, Mark, and AJ, that band was an evolving band. So Eddie didn't come in. So I was in the band when it started in 72. Eddie came in 75. Dee came in 76. Mark came in 78. And AJ came in 82.
Dude, that's absolutely amazing, man. And, going through that many lineups, I was watching one of your videos earlier, and you were talking about how important it is to have drive, the drive for your passion. And, man, to be able to go through that many lineups and still keep the dream alive, that's amazing.
That's drive.
That's drive for you right there.
Well, in the book highlights the business of the band, and I do motivational speaking gigs, and I developed a technique called the Twisted Method of Entrepreneurial Reinvention, and it's TWISTED because those 7 letters are examples of what we use to succeed. It was tenacity, wisdom, inspiration, stability, trust, excellence, and discipline. Those are the 7 rules of success.
I like that.
And that's the twisted method of reinvention is what I teach. And through the Twisted Business, I take you through the stages of how the band went from just a rock band, like a glitter rock band, to like a business.
That's crazy. It's awesome because a lot of people don't realize that, a lot of the people that, oh, it's all about the music, they don't realize a lot of their favorite bands, they're more or less brands because they are more of a business. It's not just, getting up there and playing music. Once you guys get to a level like, say, Twisted Sister per se, it's a lot more than that, merch, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, yeah, it's a business. It's not unlike any other business. It's the same. All businesses go through reorganization, redevelopment, reinvention. That's how businesses survive, except that rock music is a sexy business to talk about. So when you tell the story about rock, it's sexy. But it's actually no different than a car company, a shoe company, a clothing manufacturer. It doesn't matter except it involves music. And so, yes, there's a creativity level, but every business that's successful has creative people in it. You have different people that do different jobs and can fulfill different positions in a company. One thing early on that I did not like was I didn't like what drugs and alcohol were doing to band members. Because it was destroying the band's ability to make a living because we were working 6 days a week, 5 shows a night. Most people don't understand the pressures when you were in bands back in the 70s when we were playing in bars. You do 5 shows. That means you do 5 shows a night. Yeah. So when most bands come to me now and they say to me, hey, JJ, I want you to come see my band. And I go, how many shows have you played? How long have you been together? And they go, we've been together 2 years. And I go, how many shows you played? And they go, oh, man, we played about 50 shows. Really cool. And I said, well, tell me when you reach 500 and I'll come and see you. And they'll go, well, we'll never do that. And I said, well, there's a good chance I'll never come and see your band. And the reason why I say that is because in the first 2 years of Twisted Sister, the first 2 years we played 1,951 shows.
Jesus.
So by the time the band got signed to its record deal, we were well over 7,000 performances.
Man.
And when we retired, I was at 9,250 roughly myself. So you don't really get great until you do it like that. And I try to explain that to people. It's a lot of work. It's a ton of work. And what happens is if you do a lot of drugs and you drink, you can't keep up with that pace. So I wound up becoming really anti-drug and alcohol. Only because it was destroying my ability to make a living. I don't care. You want to kill yourself with it, that's your business. You want to do it, that's your business. If you could do it and not affect my business, that's your business. But when getting high affects my business, then you're out. You're done. There's no place for that in the workplace. And so for the myth of sex, drugs, rock and roll, and fairy dust or whatever, that may be a myth to somebody, but it's certainly the drugs part had no play to me, except that I became extremely anti-drug and alcohol because I just kept running into idiots who would get sick. They couldn't do the shows. They would perform terribly, and we fired them over and over and over and over and over again because of drug and alcohol abuse. I got sick of it. So that's the interesting little secret, was that Twisted Sister was packaged as one of the craziest bands in the world, and we were possibly the straightest band in the world.
That is unbelievable, man. And I commend you guys for doing that because, it is really true. And like, I don't know if it's as extreme nowadays, but drugs and alcohol have a huge play in it. And what's crazy is you're saying about playing 5 shows a night, and it's insane that nowadays I know a lot of bands that can only maybe do like 1 or 2 or 3 a night, but 5 a night, that's like just absolutely insane.
Six
Not just 5 a night, but 6 nights a week.
Yeah,
that's insane.
I mean, at one point, we worked 105 nights between Memorial Day and Labor Day weekend, 1973. 5 shows a night.
Wow.
That's about 105 nights. And the most we ever played, I think, consecutively was 34. So 5 shows a night, whatever. So that's the kind of discipline that it took for us. Now, I can't speak about other bands because every band's got their own pathway. Def Leppard's got their own pathway, and Kiss has their own pathway, and Motley has their own pathway. So I can't speak to their pathway. I only know our pathway. I only know how it worked for me. And there was no substitute for hard work and finding people dedicated, which is why finding D, who agreed with me 100% and freaking never got high, hated it. Just like he didn't like drugs and alcohol. So we bonded over the fact that we both disliked it so much. And when Mendoza joined, Mark hated it too. So we really bonded over the fact that we all just couldn't stand the effects of drugs and alcohol on people. I don't even care that you did it. I don't care that you do it. That's your life. You can do whatever the hell you want to do with your life. But if your life impinges on my ability to become successful because you're so wasted that you screw up, well, I got no time for that. It's as simple as that. I just don't have any. There's no way I will ever. I have no time for it. So therefore, it became so notorious that people did not want to join the band because we didn't get high, which was fine with me because if I'm auditioning a drummer and I say to the drummer, listen, by the way, we really don't like drugs and alcohol in this band, so please tell me because we really don't approve of it. And if you're honest enough and say, well, man, I love drinking and getting high. That's why I'm in a band. That's what we do, right? And I go, well, maybe you do, but we don't. So if we're going to ask you to not do it in this band, but if you tell me you're not going to do it, then we like you as a drummer, then we'll hire you. But if you tell me that you agree, and then you get stoned and you're high, you'll be fired. And some musicians were straight out with us and said, well, I'm not gonna not do drugs and drink because that's why I got into rock and roll. And I go, fair enough. That's cool.
Man, you were talking about how how important it is to be sober. When you're trying to run a business, that it's okay for other people to run their business the way they want it, but in your business, you don't want to waste any time, and how great it was that you met D and that he was a part of the same concept that it's better to keep your eyes on rock and roll and business and leave drugs and getting high out of it.
Yeah, and so we just worked really hard, but then again, then we decided we portray ourselves as being crazy, like SMS, because we were straight, so we needed to kind of portray ourselves as being really out there. So that became the image of the band, to portray ourselves as being totally insane, while we were probably the most calculating straight band on the planet. So
I think that's one of my favorite things about the whole Twisted Sister myth is how you guys were so the PMRC. You guys were one of their favorites back in the day. Yet you were a bunch of straight-laced guys just wanting to play some rock and roll, and
Yeah, and they accused us of destroying the moral fiber of America, and the joke of it was that we were straighter than any of the people in Congress. I'm sure they were alcoholics. I'm sure they did cocaine. I'm sure they were screwing around on their wives, and here we were totally straight, with our girlfriends and wives, not screwing around, and they're the ones who were so screwed up, and they're accusing us. It was pretty ironic.
Oh, the irony is great there. I want to skip ahead a little bit, if that's okay, to around the '87 era when you guys initially ceased performing, and you started your own management company and a production company. And around that same time, you also took over the management of Twisted Sister as well. I want to, it might have been within a year after that or so. And
yeah, well, I managed the band in the early days.
Okay.
And then I came back and took it over in '87. There was a lot of decisions to make, and one of the decisions to make was to break up the band. So we did. We stopped performing, and I kept it going with Mark, and we produced greatest hits albums and stuff, but I didn't think the band was going to get back together. We went through a very long period. There was a crazy period where me and Dee filed for bankruptcy and lost everything because we were sued. We were going to be sued for millions of dollars. And so we did a preemptive bankruptcy filing, and then we were both broke. So by 1989, I had no money, Dee had no money, and he had to sell his house, and I was working at a pool hall overnight to make money.
Whoa.
I was managing a pool hall, and also around that time, I was still trying to think of myself as a producer-manager, and so I was producing a band in Atlanta called Red Threat, and then over the next, I got remarried and had a kid, and signed a bunch of other artists and got them record deals, and none of them panned out at all, and so I decided, I quit the pool hall business, but I needed a job, and so I started selling stereo equipment in Manhattan, and I was selling stereo gear on the east side, and going to people's houses on Park Avenue. If you don't know New York City, you don't walk into Park Avenue if you're a worker, you go through the back door. So I'd have to go through the back doors of apartment buildings, and I'd go up to these apartments and put these stereo systems in, and I'd see my albums there. And I would never say a word. I'd say a thing to anybody because I don't want to have like a stupid conversation. That used to be me. I didn't want to deal with that crap. Yeah. But while all that was going on, the band Seven Dust was called Crawl Space at the time, and I knew the guys. They had evolved from this band called Red Threat that I had signed in '87, and they'd evolved through several different versions of bands. And by the time '94 rolled around, they were on the verge of creating a new sound, which was nu metal, the whole era of nu metal. Yeah. And they asked me to manage and produce them. So me and Mark produced their debut album. And everybody knows that's the most successful Seven Dust album ever. And it became a huge hit. And then they asked me to manage them, and I quit the stereo business because everything was going so well with Seven Dust. And I came back, I bought a house, everything was wonderful, and then around 2001, I'd already been through like a lot of cataclysmic, huge issues in my life. When the band broke up in '87, we filed for bankruptcy, I divorced my first wife. When Seven Dust exploded, it became really big, and then things kind of devolved, and we stopped working together. My second wife and I split. I went through a second upheaval, major upheaval. And at that point, I really was questioning what the hell, how life is, how it's so arbitrary. It goes up and down, up and down, up and down. And at that moment in time, 9/11 occurred, and then we reformed to do a benefit for New York City, and then the word got out, Twisted played, and then we got offers around the world, and then we came back as one of the biggest concert attractions in the world for 14 years. So when people ask me how to describe my life, I say I was turned down more times than a bedsheet in a whorehouse and come back more times than Freddy Krueger. So it's been a pretty wild ride, for sure. It's been a wild ride.
Right on. Well, I was just kind of doing a little snooping on, I was gathering my notes for this interview, and a couple of the interesting tidbits I found when I was gathering notes is that after you guys got back together and all that, you guys managed to perform at least one benefit show a year for causes that were, near and dear to each of you particular guys. And
yes, that's true. That's true. It became very, when we finally had the power to do something good, we did. So Dee has a charity, I had a charity. Dee and Mark worked on a charity together, Eddie Eddie did one for his wife, breast cancer. AJ, so yes, we did at least one benefit a year.
I can dig that. I like that. I just had to wanted to get that clarified because I read that. I'm like, I think that's pretty cool. I can't say that for every band out there.
No, every band has a journey. People ask me to make grandiose statements on other bands, and I go, I can't. I don't know what other bands go through. First of all, people who put down bands, I have to say this, most of the bands from our era, the 80s, Priest, Kiss, AC/DC, if you manage to survive 40 years, I don't care. You could suck. You get my respect. It's a tough business. It's a really, 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 really tough business to survive in. So if you figure out how to survive it, more power to you. But I don't know how other bands do what they do. I don't know what their inner workings are. I just know how hard it is for us, and I respect all the not just bands, by the way. I don't care if it's Madonna, pop artists, whatever. The entertainment business is a tough business, as you can imagine. It's a really tough business, and if you can survive it, if you're a survivor in this business, then more power to you.
Awesome.
Definitely. And on the subject of the whole entertainment business, my notes kind of crossed here. I was when you guys first got back together and all the the DVDs and such you put out. One of the things that came to my attention was the re-recording of "Stay Hungry" that you guys put out, "Still Hungry," and one of the tidbits mentioned that it was kind of the result of obsolete and unfair contracts in the recording industry, and I was just curious how accurate that was with that whole album being re-recorded due to that, or whatnot.
Well, we took advantage of a clause in the record contracts, which are the only pro-artist clause in the history of the record contracts. The record contracts are indentured servitude and they're slave paperwork to the labels. It's the only business in the world where you record something, you pay the record label back for it, and you still don't own it, and that's called your record master. Okay, it's disgusting. So we re-recorded the album, and then we took the re-records and we used them for commercials, TV shows, et cetera, et cetera. So when you hear "We're Not Gonna Take It, I Wanna Rock" on a TV show, a TV commercial, movie soundtrack, it's the re-record because we retain 100% of the rights to that, and that was, believe me, trust me when I tell you, the record labels, they thought their arrogance was back in the days when they made these contracts in the 40s. They went, well, no one will last more than 5 years. If they want to re-record the stuff, you may as well let them because they're not going to last 5 years anyway. Who cares? That's the unmitigated arrogance of record labels. Wow. So they put a clause in that allows you to re-record. Any band can do it. Of course, I don't know about the new contracts. I have no idea how the new contracts are written, so I don't know what the new arrangements are with the 360 deals. But let's just say that 90% of all record deals that existed prior to the last 10 years, the re-record clause is there. You can just go back. So we've told every band we know, re-record your music, sell your own music, instead of selling the record label's version, keep the money yourself. So we pioneered that, and we are, from what I understand, the biggest, if not the biggest, one of the biggest licensors of music of any heavy metal band. Our songs, "We're Not Gonna Take It, I Wanna Rock," are among the most licensed songs in the history of heavy metal, if not the most licensed.
Oh, yeah.
I'll believe it. As a little kid, even before I realized, what music I was into and stuff like that, I remember it's one of the first songs I remember, remembering, if you will. So Right.
Well, we're fortunate to have songs that are iconic like that. We're really fortunate. But, all these bands, ZZ Top, AC/DC, Judas Priest, all the bands that we are associated with our era are very fortunate in that we have a music that people cared about around the world, still care about it. If COVID wasn't happening this year, there would be hundreds of thousands of people seeing these bands around the world and festivals around the world. That's how much the staying power is of this music, which is phenomenal. If you go to South America, and your Twisted Sister, Judas Priest, Alice Cooper, Motley Crue, Kiss, Black Sabbath, the way we're revered there is like a religion. It's absolutely unbelievable. Our number one Spotify country is Mexico, as a matter of fact.
Wow.
Yeah, the South American market is astonishing. And the European market, by the way, is no slouch. The European market is phenomenal, but the South American market borders on the religious fanaticism, which I've never experienced, and had I not gone to South America to play in the soccer stadiums and to see the fans, I wouldn't have known it, but it's an unbelievable experience. Our South American fans are mind-blowing. mind-blowing to me. They're so incredibly loyal and wonderful.
I've always wanted to. I see videos and stuff from festivals, down there and such, and it's always been kind of like a bucket list item of mine to want to go down there just to go to a concert. Because they
trust me, there's a reason why so many bands do their DVDs in Buenos Aires, for example. It's like Beatlemania down there. I never thought I'd experience screaming, especially when I was 63 years old. Maybe when I was 18, but yeah, here I am. And most of the kids there are like 18 to 25. So you have to ask them as to why this music latched onto them as heavily as it did, but it did. So 80s music, which is so derisively considered an American criticism. It's like, oh, it's 70s, it's 80s hairband, blah, 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 you suck, or whatever. If it sucks so bad, why do we matter to so many people around the world,
It doesn't suck at all.
Yeah, those are fighting words to a guy like me.
Yeah, so it's true. I mean, it really is true. You don't have to, your friends can say whatever they want to say, but I don't know if there's a music that is as universally demanded as heavily as arena 80s metal. I just don't know. Because Guns N' Roses and Kiss and Us and Priest, we could sell at soccer stadiums around the world. It's really it's absolutely astonishing. Scorpions is part of that world, It's absolutely amazing. ZZ Top is a part of that world. Everybody knows us. And by the way, they don't necessarily support newer bands either, which is interesting to me. They really kind of latched on to this era that we represent, that MTV metal era.
Yeah.
And that image, that thing, is what they want. And if you can deliver it, to them, they go crazy. And they're an incredible way. And by the way, we sell out their stadiums in Belgium, France, Germany, all over Germany, the UK. The festivals are massive in these places. The fans are phenomenal, but but they're older. They tended to get into it at a younger age or in the 80s, and now they're maybe averaging 40, 50. South America, the kids are like, they were not born when all of us were creating our music, and that to me says a lot. It says an awful lot to me.
Absolutely, man. And growing up, I grew up in a Mexican family, listening to like mariachi music and big band music, and listening to We're Not Gonna Take It, I Want to Rock, and Aussie tracks, man. That hit me hard, man. And when I first got into you guys, there was already like this huge culture that I was never really familiar with, man. But no, I think till this day, man, it still hits me just as hard.
There's something it does to you.
So have you heard the mariachi version of We're Not Gonna Take It?
I'm going to when we're done with this interview.
Yeah, go online. We did it for Hornitos Tequila for Cinco de Mayo 7 years ago.
Oh wow!
So we made a mariachi version of Novo. Actually, do you know that in South America they made We're Not Gonna Take It into a butter commercial, and they sing Huevos con Sete down there.
That's awesome.
So when you do the song in the stadium, and they go Huevos con Sete, Huevos con Sete, Huevos con Sete y limón, which is eggs and oil with lemon. And I don't exactly understand why, but they were selling T-shirts with our logo with 2 fried eggs on it. And I'm telling you, so we heard about it, and the promoter said, no, go, because our guitar player, Eddie Ojeda, is Puerto Rican. So they said, sing Huevos con Sete, sing a chorus of Huevos con Sete. So we're in Mexico, and we start singing Huevos con Sete. The place goes absolutely batshit. Then we go to Spain, and we're playing with Iron Maiden, and we're thinking, I wonder if they do the same thing here. I don't know. So we went into it, and we have a video of 40,000 people in Spain and Madrid singing Huevos con Sete. It's so cool. But, the thing is that We're Not Going to Take It is now probably the number 1 protest song in the world. Utilized by so many organizations, so many people, and it's the number 1 anthem of disenfranchisement. And we are fortunate that we have that song, because people love that song.
Oh, it's great. It's like I said, it's legendary. It's a phenomenon. We're kind of slowly dwindling out of time here, but I wanted to kind of quickly get through the, up to I'm tripping over my own words here. The farewell tour, how you guys got into that after the untimely loss of AJ, and just want to know, what was it like playing on the subject of South America and some of those bigger stadiums? What was it like playing some of those, huge crowds, knowing that this is going to be it for you guys?
In 2016, we did the final shows. In fact, the last show was with Kiss in Monterrey, Mexico. And Mike Portnoy came in, as everybody knows, filled in for AJ the last 2 years. And, AJ's loss was heartbreaking to the band. It was heartbreaking. He was my little brother. And every day I think of him. Every day I can't believe he's not here. He was as much a part of this band, in the heartbeat of this band, as John Bonham was to Led Zeppelin or Keith Moon was to The Who. And that's not to say that Mike Portnoy isn't absolutely one of the greatest drummers in the world. But AJ had a secret sauce that was connected to our body and soul, and losing him was horrible. It's one of the worst days of my life. But we continued on, and then in 2016, basically, I had gotten tired. I just said, it's enough. We got together in 2003 for a farewell tour. I thought it would last a year, and it lasted 14 years. And I just had kind of lost interest in continuing on. So everyone said to me, oh, that's nonsense. You guys will be back. And I'm not going to say to you it'll never happen again, because I said that once before and it did. So I'm not going to say that. But as every day goes by that we don't play is another day that I don't want to play. So I don't foresee us ever playing again. But, I said that once before, and we did. So therefore, I don't want to sound like an idiot. Who knows? But there are no plans for us. But it was emotional. The last 16 shows were extremely emotional. And, there's a Twisted Sister official YouTube channel, and we filmed almost every show that summer. And we're trying to get it up. We're trying to edit the shows and get them up on. So if you go to the official Twisted Sister channel over time, or go to our Instagram page and keep track of our story, we'll let you know when more live shows come online.
I can dig it.
That you can watch.
I can dig it. If I can finish up, I just had a couple random Q&A type questions. I wrote all these notes down, not realizing I had this whole interview without any basic, questions asked. So I just kind of wanted to add a few last ones in there. I had some questions from friends of mine in a Facebook group called Everything Glam Metal, and one of the first questions we got from them was from a member named Valentine Fur, and Valentine asked if do you feel like how did I write that? I'm going to skip to the next one, excuse me. Jennifer Gardner asked, was it weird going through the whole hoopla with the PMRC?
So what was that about? You mean, what was that like?
What was the experience like? Was it obviously it had to have been, I guess, annoying in a sense, because, you guys are one of the few straight-laced bands out there.
Yeah, there's a lot of conflicting issues I have with it. First of all, a lot of people were morally outraged. Oh, how could they blame heavy metal? And to me, I was looking for publicity. I hate to sound like Gene Simmons in this manner, which is like any publicity is good publicity, but it didn't matter. I thought, wow, maybe this will help record sales. So I wasn't looking at it from like a giant moral stand. I just thought to myself, well, let's just get as much publicity as possible, and the more we can talk about Twisted, the better our record sales will be. That's all I thought about it. I didn't, because I thought the whole thing was weird. The whole PMRC thing was weird. Democrats in general don't attack artists, and this is Tipper Gore. And she's a Democrat, and this seemed to be a reactionary Republican, right-wing, conspiratorial BS about the devil-worshipping signals that bands send out, and we all thought that was so stupid, because we're not that, we're just not that. We weren't that. I can't speak about any other band, but, we just want to go on and do our business, and if acting a little crazy and having the fan club called the SMF or TS, and Twisted F and Sister, and, that was all show. So that was a show. So to be indicted for destroying the moral fabric of America when we were actually the straightest band in the world playing was kind of ironic and silly silly and stupid, and I just wanted to generate as much publicity as possible. So I had no particularly high-minded moral outrage over it. That's just my personal view of it.
I think that's the best way to go about it, especially knowing that, these people they were trying to villainize you as, you guys could have been further from that, and you guys knew that, so why not get all of the business?
No, but you're right, because I thought, okay, so maybe there's people who know we're straight and they want us to be tougher, so maybe this will make us look tougher. There were so many hypocritical aspects of it floating around in my brain in the situation, and all I thought at the end of the day was, well, if it just gives us more publicity and we sell more records, I'm happy about it. The moral standing of it, I thought it was being used for agendas that were totally fake. So therefore, I stood on no particular soapbox defending something for the rightness of it, of moral indignation, because I thought the whole thing was nonsense from top to bottom.
I can respect that. I'm going to combine these last two questions I have to save a little time. How do you feel about the resurgence of the glam fashion and style in today's world thanks to the internet? And do you feel like there's a chance for the whole glam metal scene in today's age to, come back?
I think things reach a certain level of niche, like there's a certain amount of nostalgia for everything. That's like saying to me, do I think the Beatles-type music will ever come back again? Do I think the Mercy sound will ever come back? Do I think Motown will ever come back? Do I think, acid rock will ever come back? Do I think folk rock will ever come back? The answer to all those questions are they've been here. Certain people will pick up on it. Certain people, make it fashionable for a short period of time and then move on. I think that been there, done that. I don't see a big trend towards it. But look, when the Stray Cats came out in '83 with Rock This Town, everybody thought, oh, rockabilly's back. Rockabilly's back. Gene Vincent's back. No, they weren't back. They came back in a shtick. Gimmicky. It was cute. Really good, because Brian Setzer is unbelievably talented, but it didn't create a youth movement. It created. There was a point in time. So everything has a point in time. So I think that just when someone says you think this will come back, blah blah blah. No, I think that there's a long-term appreciation, and that there will be certain manifestations of creative reimagining, but I think we all move on, and I think we've moved on in terms of the general scheme of things. Well, because first of all, rock music doesn't sell at all anyway, so let's be real about this. Rock music is deader than dead. So when people say to me, oh man, you're a naysayer about rock music, I say, I'm not a naysayer about rock music. I'll just tell you straight out. When I was 17 years old, in 1969, every one of my heroes, from the Beatles to the Stones, Who, Zep, Floyd, Grateful Dead, Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, Bob Dylan, you name it, none of them were older than 25, right? We had thousands of rock stars that were 25 years old. Thousands when I was 17. When you go to these rock festivals around the world that I just described to you, that sell out around the world, Queen, Twisted, Motley, right, Kiss, what's the average age of these bands? 60. Not 25, 60. Why? Because there's no 25-year-olds who are leading the charge. So let me ask you guys, name me 5 bands that are 25 years old that are selling millions of records. Can you name me 5? Can you name me 3? Can you name me 2? Can you name me 1?
Yeah, not millions. Not like you guys are, not like what was going on in the 80s.
All right, so what? So what do we have? Give me 5 bands that are selling tons of records that are all over the charts, all over Billboard. The answer is this, 0. Okay? Now, are there hip-hop artists who are that young? Absolutely. Are there female pop artists that are that young? Absolutely. Are there country artists that young? Absolutely. Rap artists? Absolutely. Rock? Not so much. So the genre itself is moribund. The genre itself has not truly reimagined itself in a big way. Not dead, but just not in a way that captures the imagination of young people. And if it was so damn good, why aren't these kids in South America who are 20, who are 17 years old, listening to these bands? They're not. In fact, they don't want to know anything about them. It's always us. And like I said, we're getting older. And the Rolling Stones are so freaking old. I mean, how old are they? 80 years old at this point? I mean, think about the Rolling Stones. They're the biggest live act in the world. They're like 80 years old. Their fans are so old they don't clap because they're afraid the lights will go on in the arena. I mean, they're like a horrible band. You know, the two guitar players can't, you know, it's like watching Ronnie Wood and Keith Richards play guitars like being driven in a tour bus by Ray Charles and Jose Feliciano without a GPS. It's one of the scariest experiences known to mankind. You know, and they're 80. If I told my mother when I was 17 I was going to go see a band, they're 80 years old, she'd look at me with two heads, go, what, do they play classical music? You going to, are they jazz guys who are about to die? So that says an awful lot about the current state of the music industry. You know, it's just not, the rock side ain't that healthy, you know, so I'll support any rock band that's healthy, but I don't sit there and go, rock is this, I feel threatened by it. Life goes on, man. Life goes on. The world changes, music changes, styles change. Everything has an era. Rock's been around 50 years, and if rock is kind of over, it had a 50-year run. That's a great run. That's an amazing run. Maybe it'll last a little bit longer. I don't know. I'm not a soothsayer, but I don't necessarily sit there and go, oh, I wax over the old days of glam. I mean, if you're going to really ask me that question, I'm a Grateful Dead fanatic. Why don't you ask me, do I think Fish is great? And I've never heard a Fish record, ever. I wouldn't know Fish from Trout. I really have no idea what Fish does, but they're massive, right? Huge, but and Trey lives a block away from me, right away in New York City. I see him going to the grocery store all the time. It's my neighborhood. But I don't know. People wax nostalgic. Let me tell you something. I'm a blues guitar player and a blues fan. So my heroes are Albert King, Mississippi Frederick Dowell, Sonny Boy Williamson, Lonnie Johnson, Buddy Guy, B.B., Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf. I can listen to those guys. I will be listening to those guys till the day I die. They're all gone. It's timeless. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's what I listen to. That's what I listen to. That's exactly, I listen to blues 95% of the time. That's what I listen to. And I don't think I've bought a new blues album in 30 years.
Wow.
Okay, so all due respect to Joe Bonamassa, who's great, Stevie Ray Vaughan, who's certainly great. There's certainly some really good players, but I like the old guys, and I listen to them all the time. And that has been my music. Really, it's the most timeless. It's my classical music. It's ultimately the timeless music for me. So that's kind of what I listen to.
You make me feel a lot better about kind of like, I always tell people I'm stuck in the 80s, so I mean, I don't feel so bad about it now, because I'm 34, and like I said, you guys are and all those other artists you mentioned that, from your, that you guys work with and stuff, from your era, that's what I was listening to in high school, so it's kind of like, it's kind of cool knowing that, I guess it's not that I ever thought it was a bad thing, but now I have to say I have absolutely no shame being an 80s guy.
Well, I can tell you that the music you fall in love with between the ages of 12 and 20 is the music that stays with you for the rest of your life. And so I don't know how old you were during the 80s. I don't know if you fit into that slot of 12 to 20. I don't know.
I was born in 86.
Oh, so you were born in 86.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. That's really interesting. So by the time grunge, you were like post-grunge. By the time 98 rolls around, I don't know where the hell. Well, you were Seven Dust territory at that point. Korn, Seven Dust, that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, I remember.
System of a Down.
Rise of Korn, System of a Down. Watching new metal has become a thing. It was cool. A lot of my friends they embraced it, but for some reason I was just kind of, I love the big sound of the 80s. I still do. So,
were you guys Metallica fans?
Yeah. I grew up more as a Bruce Dickinson type of guy, because I love like his opera voice, but I definitely like Metallica, but I was always leaning towards melodic bands when I was younger.
Likewise.
Cool. That's interesting. I mean, That's really interesting to me to hear, but that's good. You know, and you should never be ashamed. Listen, I grew up in the 60s, so when the Beatles hit, I was 12 years old, and when the Beatles broke up, I was 20, so I had the bullseye of the Beatles. But all the music that I listened to in that period of time, which is all the Motown stuff, the Beach Boys, you know, the Rolling Stones, Dave Clark 5, The Who, all that stuff. You know, and also, I mean, I saw all these bands. I saw The Who when I was 15. I saw Zeppelin when I was 16. I saw them at their first show in New York, opening up for Iron Butterfly. I saw the Dead 26 Times. I saw Pink Floyd in 68. I mean, I've seen all these acts at the peak of their careers at the time. So when people ask me how confident I feel about the music I listen to, I said, listen, I've done 9,000 shows. I've seen another 2,000. I've seen just about everybody you could ever want to see. And I have my opinions of when I see something. I feel confident in my opinion of it, you know. And I really don't care what other people's opinion of it is either. I have my own because I believe I have the gravitas to have these opinions. Look, I write for several magazines. I don't know if you know this. I write a Beatle column for Goldmine magazine called Now We're 64, and I write a music column for Copper, which is an online audio magazine, Copper, which is through a company called PS Audio, which is an audio company. If you go psaudio.com, you'll see Copper. Copper is a magazine they publish. I do a bi-monthly column for Copper, in which I discuss the music industry in general and my feelings about certain bands. And I write a Beatle column, and I write a business column for Inc. magazine. For those of you who want to know my business side, if you go to jjfrench.inc.com, you'll get my 50 articles that I've written for Inc. So it's like a really broad view of the world, and I tend to have a broad view of the world, and I don't have a microscopic view of it. I have a rather large view, so I can see mega trends and see bigger things. I don't get all bogged down. I don't get bogged down to the small stuff. You know, I really don't. And if I like a record, someone turns around and says I like it. But in general, I don't currently listen to current music because there's not enough time in this world. As my friend who has been getting over COVID just wrote on Facebook, they just wrote, I just finished Netflix.
Well,
yeah.
Hey.
And that's what I feel like. I just finished Netflix.
Hey. So, JJ, we've ran out of time. I want to thank you so much for being a part of our 100th interview episode here on the Metal Mixtape. You made history for us. You made childhood dreams come true for me and Josh.
Yes, I can't thank you enough for that, sir.
Is there any way you can make one more dream come true for us, brother?
Which is a station ID?
Yeah. Oh man,
I've done this before.
Yeah. Thank you, Jay.
Yeah. Give me the exact wording. What do you want me to say?
This is JJ French from Twisted Sister, and you're listening to the Metal Mixtape.
To the Metal Mixtape?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. You ready?
Yep.
Hey, everybody. This is JJ French from Twisted Sister live in New York. Well, by the time you hear it, it'll be taped. Anyway, you are listening to the Metal Mixtape. Have a good day.
Hey, thank you, brother, so much.